Hey everyone, this is James, and just finished uploading the Justice League Crisis on Two Earths review, so I figured might as well review the other movie that I saw last night. This review is probably going to be a lot shorter than the Justice League on Two Earths review, and it's probably only going to be one part, but I'm going to review the animated adaptation of All-Star Superman. Now, All-Star Superman is by the comic is by Grant Morrison and came out, I think, like 2005. It's a couple of years ago. Long story short, it's kind of an essential Superman story. And essentially the story is Superman, while trying to save some scientists from Star Labs who were flying too close to the sun, and basically Lex Luthor set a bad guy up there, a villain he kind of created, to kill them all. Superman tried to save them, but got too close to the sun, and basically absorbed way too much of the sun's energy, and now has only about a year to live. And the story is essentially Superman's last year on Earth. And overall, I think All-Star Superman is pretty much a good representation of what Superman is. The story is not incredibly complicated. In fact, it's fairly simple. In fact, it takes a lot of inspiration from like Golden Age and Silver Age Superman stories, and kind of ignores a lot of the modern continuity, which is both good and bad. But overall, I'd say it's pretty good, so that's why I'm going to do the opposite thing with what I did with my Justice League Crisis on Two Earths review, where I basically reviewed the positive things first, then the negative things, because there were more negative things than positive. So I'm going to do the opposite this time. I'm going to say slight negative things before I review the positive things. Overall, as an adaptation of All-Star Superman, while pretty good and close, it does make a lot of changes and variations. Mostly, it cuts a lot of things out. Now, keep in mind, I only read Volume 1 of All-Star Superman, but even only after reading the first volume, I can see they cut a lot out. Particularly, they cut out, from what I read in the first volume, probably my favorite story, which is Jimmy getting in charge of Star Labs. And they also cut out the story with Superman getting infected by, I think, red kryptonite, or I think they may have changed it to black kryptonite, I don't really remember, but basically Superman turning evil story. So I really felt like they cut out those two stories, and I could understand why they kept the story they kept, which is Lois Lane getting Superman's powers for a day. But overall, while that one is far more significant to the overall plot, I still liked the Jimmy stories better. Also, I didn't quite like the way they handled Jimmy in the adaptation, because in this one, Jimmy, the first time you see Jimmy, he's in drag. He's cross-dressing, which is explained a lot better in the comics. It's kind of explained that Jimmy is really into fashion and stuff, and he's just trying out all kinds of fashion stuff. In here, it's just kind of random, and it's just kind of some guy just asks him, "What are you doing investigating for a case?" And he says, "No, why do you ask?" After he just pulled off a wig and while he's in a dress. And it's just kind of random and just kind of all of a sudden. It just felt like she needed more explanation, or it could have just been cut out in general, because it's just kind of confusing. And I think it'll just confuse people who haven't read the book. There are slight hitches with the animation. Superman's chin looks really big in this. Like, he kind of looks like Jay Leno. I can't really think of any... Oh, and the animation is really, really different than the style that was in All-Star Superman. But I'm not going to necessarily say that's a negative. Now to the positives. Overall, besides the fact of how much they've changed, I think this is paced a lot better than the comic. Yeah, they removed a lot of the extra stories, but this really did make the Lex Luthor story, which I'm not going to reveal, be a lot more home-hitting. It kind of felt like it was a background story for me when reading the first volume of All-Star Superman. It really wasn't that interesting. And here it's made a lot more interesting, and it's really more about the relationship between Superman and Lex Luthor. And honestly, the animation changes, while it is a really different style than the comic, I honestly like this a bit better because it still manages to capture the feel that the comic let off, but it's easier to follow because one of the problems I found with All Star Superman is while the art was good, it was kind of hard to follow. Like the whole scene with I'm not big on Superman lore, but the big scene with the riot in the prison, that was done far better in the movie adaptation than it was in the comic, because in the comic it was kind of confusing what was going on a little bit, and you could clearly tell what was going on in the adaptation. The voice acting was fantastic. I don't think there was anyone who did a bad job. Really, especially the person who played Superman and who played Lex Luthor, I don't know who they are. I will probably research that later, but they did a fantastic job. They really managed to really create and bring Lex to life, and you really understand Lex towards the end, and you can even somewhat understand his point of view. And they really, I think, have a really good voice for Lex Luthor. And I kind of like it because it isn't like, it's kind of like an essential Lex Luthor, because he really isn't this is the mad scientist Lex Luthor. This isn't the businessman, politician Lex Luthor that most people know of today. This is the mad scientist Lex Luthor. I usually like a combination of the two, but this is really the mad scientist Lex Luthor. Overall, it was a fairly good story, and the ending kind of touched me, and I have to admit, it really touched me, and really, if you like Superman, this is good. However, there are far better Superman stories, especially dealing with the death of Superman. So if you want, in my opinion, a better Superman story, pick up Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow by Alan Moore. I just think that better captures this. Overall, though, I would say, so far, this is the second best of the DC directed DVD animated films. Number one would still be Under the Red Hood, which managed to be a surpass the thing it adapted. I'd give it about an 8.5 out of 10. It's not perfect, and I really wish they had left a lot of stuff in, but it's still worth watching. Peace out.